Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the International Community Candidate Forum for Ward 17. At Global Cleveland, we are excited to host this non-political, non-endorsement, community-centered conversation. We look forward to this discussion and the positive momentum for Cleveland's future that it will produce. If English is not your first language, please check the Zoom options bar for the interpretation function. Before I introduce our moderator and candidate for the evening, I would like to thank our partners. Asia Inc., Asiatown Cleveland, Bobondo Community of Greater Cleveland, British American Chamber of Commerce of Ohio, Building Hope in the City, City Club of Cleveland, Cleveland Council on World Affairs, Council on International Programs USA, Cleveland Cultural Gardens, Collaborative Chambers Alliance, Connecting Cleveland, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Global Shapers Cleveland, NAACP of Cleveland, Ohio Progressive Asian Women's Leadership, Refugee Response, Smart Development, Us Together, USCRI, and Young Latino Network. Thank you. Putting this on would not have been possible without you. Now, before I explain the guidelines of this forum, we have a short video from Mo Kantner, our national partner from the New American Economy.
Hello, and welcome to today's Candidate Forum with Global Cleveland. My name is Mo Kantner, and I'm the Director of State and Local Initiatives at New American Economy. At New American Economy, we're a bipartisan research and advocacy organization that focuses on making the economic case for better immigration policies at the federal, state, and local levels. Now, immigration may feel like an abstract issue debated at the national level through very technical, political, and bureaucratic constraints, and that's partially true, but immigrant integration happens at the local level. How communities attract and welcome newcomers helps lay the foundation for whether a person stays, works, starts a small business, or raises a family. In Cleveland alone, there are over 125,000 immigrants. They pay over $1.3 billion in taxes and help fill workforce needs in healthcare, manufacturing, and other critical industries. They're also over 60% more likely than the US-born population to start a small business in Cleveland. They not only help fill workforce needs, they create jobs for other Americans. And that is something that can't be captured at the national level. Those impacts are happening on the ground every day in Cleveland's communities. Our local elected officials have a huge impact on people's day-to-day lives. And when policies are established that let everyone live up to their potential, everybody benefits. So thank you again for participating in this critical conversation, and remember to vote.
Thank you, Mo. Now we will quickly review guidelines before we move into questions. Candidates will receive 2 minutes to respond to each question. If a response hits 2 minutes and 30 seconds, they will be muted to allow for efficient movement through the questions. The candidates will answer alphabetically. Any and all derogatory language or personal attacks will result in a candidate being muted and the next candidate being allowed a chance to answer. This is supposed to be a civil discussion. Let's please keep it that way and respect everyone in attendance. Next, I would like to introduce our candidate running below, who has agreed to be here tonight. Ward 17, Charles Slife. Councilman Slife lives in the West Park neighborhood of Ward 17 with his wife and their young son. He graduated from Miami University of Oxford in Ohio and grew up primarily in Avon Lake. Slife has his Master of Public Administration in Urban Economic Development from Cleveland State University's Levin College of Urban Affairs, and prior to his time on council, he worked in the city's Economic Development Office. Finally, I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Colin Derrick. Colin Derrick is Global Cleveland's Research Coordinator and Civic Engagement Specialist. Born and raised in Northeast Ohio, Colin is proud to serve and work alongside Cleveland's immigrant and international community. A recent alumna of John Carroll University, Colin is eager to learn, improve, and grow thanks to his work. Without further ado, I will now hand it over to Colin.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. With that, we'd like to move into discussion questions with our candidates. With our candidate tonight. We have about 20 minutes of pre-supplied questions, and then we'll have the final 10 minutes be open Q&A. I encourage anyone in the audience to please start putting Q&A in the Q&A function or the chat. We welcome that, and we look forward to answering those questions later. All right, first question. Councilman Slife, what is your experience serving and interacting with the international community in your own community and Northeast Ohio at large? How has this shaped your understanding of your community and your role as a leader? Also, please keep answers to approximately 2 minutes so we can move through questions efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you. And putting time limits on a politician will be the most challenging thing of the series, I suppose. But thank you very much for having me. As it was said, my name's Councilman Slife. Slight update to the bio. We did have a daughter about a week and a half ago. So I live in West Park with my 2 children and wife. But
Congratulations.
thank you. My experiencing, living and interacting with the international community. First, I've always had an interest in the world around us and the world, beyond where I live. I actually studied an international studies program when I was in undergrad. I did a semester abroad. And, while that's a big subject, I was always very eager to bring it back home. And there's that adage to think globally, act locally. Ward 17 is just a magnet right now for immigrants from all across the world and of all different reasons for coming to the United States, different socioeconomic backgrounds, but from, refugees who've come from Puerto Rico after the storms to refugees from Congo and from Bhutan to immigrants who've come to the U.S. for professional reasons. They're finding a home in West Park, and I believe that they're finding a community that is welcoming, that is eager to have them, and where they can whether it's start a business or just establish themselves within a community where they can, live that experience of, whether it's home ownership they're looking for, strong schools. There's a lot to build off of in Ward 17, and as I'm currently the council member, it's been important to me to identify those opportunities, to realize them as opportunities of growth, and to really something to celebrate.
Thank you very much, Councilman Slife. With that, I would like to move to our next question. Thank you. Our population loss from 2010 to 2018 would have been significantly worse if not for the 37,000 immigrants who moved into Cuyahoga County during that time. These new residents have offset population loss by approximately 45%. How can we attract more immigrants to move here and continue this important trend?
Right, and that's an incredibly important point. And when I moved back to Cleveland about 10 years ago and enrolled for the master's program at Cleveland State, it really was surprising to me how many international students there are, whether it's at Cleveland State, Case Western, other universities within the region, something that I had never really appreciated. And we are doing a good job as a community of recognizing the opportunity we have to, bring people out of that college system, keep them in our community, as well as supporting businesses who are looking for, to bring people to the United States through H-1B visas, which is easier said than done. And also, leaning into the opportunity to accept refugees into our communities. These are many people who have gone through some pretty dire circumstances, but are eager to live in safe communities, to establish themselves, to build their social networks, to start businesses, and really to live the life that so many of our parents or grandparents who came to Cleveland lived, of being immigrant communities and finding stability and job opportunities in a city that has so much to offer.
Thank you again, Councilman Slife. Thank you for your answer. It was a wonderful answer. Now we'll move on to our third question. There are over 1,000 immigrant entrepreneurs here in Cleveland, and they are 38% more likely to be entrepreneurs than U.S.-born residents. How will you work with the next administration to ensure that immigrant entrepreneurs receive opportunities through the Economic Development Office and other city programs?
In many ways, it was noted in my biography, I have a pretty detailed background in the city's Economic Development Office, and I believe there's a real opportunity for that office to become more proactive. It's a small shop that does a lot, but with increased staffing, a focus on, specifically on immigrant entrepreneurial opportunities, language access, there's a good and not too difficult way for a match to be made between opportunities for immigrant-owned businesses, whether that's a brand new idea or services supporting a community that's growing within the city. And making sure that the city resources that are available, whether it's a low interest loan or a grant program or technical services, are accessible for people who might not realize that that sort of infrastructure exists within the community. And I'll say again, well, first, we've had some success in Ward 17 just in the past year, in the middle of a pandemic, with the opening of an Ethiopian Eritrean restaurant that is run by an immigrant family who lives in Ward 17, refugees, as well as a boutique that caters to the Asian and African communities, that's owned by two gentlemen who are Afghan refugees who actually were employed by the U.S. military and then came to the United States on that visa. And to me, those, people have expressed a surprise that, West Park, well, why West Park? But the truth is that these communities are established in West Park. There's a lot of reasons that you can find a good location, receive business support from the city and the CDC and my office, and really flourish.
Thank you very much, Councilman Slife, especially providing some specific examples there that really gave our audience a clear picture of the process and defined examples of things that have happened and things you've done. Thank you. And on to the next question. Would you, and if so, how would you support adding new members and staff to the Community Relations Board that would represent the changing immigrant population in Cleveland, such as an African immigrant community liaison and or an Arab immigrant community liaison?
So I'm fully supportive of this, and I'm actually headed out after this meeting to the First District Community Safety meeting hosted by the Community Relations Board. So I'm going to be talking to them about it and within the hour. But as someone who has lived in another country, who has had some proficiency in the language, but certainly not a degree of comfort with it, where I can no fluency. I think I appreciate how daunting and intimidating it can be just to find yourself in a new place, and not only a new place and not only a language barrier, but also just pretty stark cultural differences. And it sometimes feels like just when you think this is going to happen, the exact opposite does, and you're really learning on the go. And the amount of culture shock, it can be intimidating. And I think by being more intentional through the Community Relations Board, by bringing in people who are kind of able to navigate the difference between, or that line between the larger community and the community coming in, and help act as not just a translator of language, but a translator of process, a translator of culture. I think that that's a real value, and that's the kind of system that we saw historically in cities like Cleveland, as different programs through settlement homes that have helped at that point, immigrants learn English and become citizens. And there's a lot of things we can do that might be new for right now, but can be adapted out of the old that were pretty successful.
Thank you again, Councilman Slife. Now we'd like to move on to our next question, which I believe kind of also deals with this issue of having people come in and making sure they're represented and making sure they're cared for. On average, 500 to 700 refugees are resettled to Cleveland every year from countries such as Nepal, Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Somalia. The Biden-Harris administration has announced that they will increase refugee admissions to 125,000 a year nationally, up from only 15,000 this past year. This means that Cleveland's 3 refugee resettlement agencies are likely to receive 3 to 4 times as many families as they did this past year. How do you plan to open Cleveland for these new residents and provide refugees with the opportunity to contribute and live in Cleveland?
So first of all, our acceptance of refugees as a city, as a nation, I do believe is a moral imperative. And while many, speaking personally, I don't think when, my ancestors came to this country, they weren't branded as refugees, but they essentially were. They were fleeing poverty and war and trying to find their new place. It's imperative on all of us that especially those that have that historical experience, that we're paying it forward and helping people come to our country. This is a real opportunity. And, but like I said in the previous question, it's a daunting experience, and especially for many of these individuals who have gone through, varying degrees of trauma that has forced them to have to flee their home, flee the stability that they once knew. Within Ward 17 specifically, there are large and growing communities, especially people from Nepal, Bhutan, residents from African countries, and I see an opportunity to help establish larger communities because it's scary to be an individual within the wilderness, but if you have a support structure that's governmental, that's systemic, but then also a support structure that's social, where there's a shared experience, people can open that business because they're able to sell products to their neighbors and maybe bring a little bit of their culture to our community. That benefits everybody. And what Ward 17 has to offer is access to job opportunities, affordable housing of all different types, public transit, high quality schools, all of the things that anybody wants for their children, for their family, and the ability for us to be able to connect those families to what this neighborhood and this city offers really is critical that we do it successfully.
Thank you very much, Councilman Slife. I appreciated the way you described that. And as someone myself who's descended from people who fled the potato famine in Ireland, I see the perspective we were coming from with the moral imperative. Next question, please. Also, I would like to encourage our audience to once again, please put Q&A questions in the Q&A or in the chat. I'm sure our candidate here is very much looking forward to answering them. Thank you. Annually, hundreds of international students graduate from Case Western, Tri-C, and CSU with skills that are in demand. However, they're not being retained in the local area and contributing to population and economic growth. Can you share what policies you will or would support to increase the retention of international graduates in our area?
Right. So this is of key importance to me. And I'll tell you anecdotally, I have a friend who works in the DC area for a technology company in human resources. Her day job, her entire job is H-1B visas for immigrants. And if people that are listening aren't familiar with the H-1B process, when we talk about immigration reform is necessary at all levels of immigration. And when we focus very often on immigrants at the border, but there's also this critical need to make our processes more open for people that are coming to the US for critically, often very high tech, very skilled jobs that we are just in high demand of. And as a region, through our, the Greater Cleveland Partnership, all of our entire business community, we need to get together and come up with a collaborative plan, an effective plan to compete for H-1B visas. So at the federal level, there's only so many H-1B visas available across the country every single year. And there's an application opening, a date certain. And there's these companies on the East Coast, in California, who are, they're chomping at the bit. They've got their paperwork ready, and on day one, they're able to submit the application and essentially take away the opportunity for communities like ours to even become competitive. We have to become competitive with that realm, because if we're not, we could have an even growing number of international students at Case, Tri-C, CSU, even to Kent and Akron. But we're not going to be able to retain them just because we're not going to be able to connect them with the job and the requisite visa that allows them to accept that position.
Councilman Slife, we appreciate the brief explanation there on H-1B visas, and we hope that at least some people in our audience found that educative, because our goal is to make these forums a very educative experience. So thank you for that quick explanation. Next, we'd like to move to question 7, and after this upcoming question, we'd like to move to Q&A. So if you have any Q/A questions, please put them in the chat, or otherwise we'll just do further questions after instead of Q&A. So first, Cleveland has sister cities all around the world, such as Ibadan, Nigeria, Lima, Peru, Gdansk, Poland, and Bangalore, India. What is your game plan for making Cleveland a more open and international facing city to strengthen and grow these relationships?
Thank you. And, in my opinion, the Sister City program, I have some questions about its origins. It almost seems kind of post-colonial, but there's a real opportunity, I think, in the 21st century to leverage it into something that could be incredibly fantastic, not just for Cleveland, but for each of our sister communities. And the example that I want to focus on is Bangalore. The country that I lived in, it was India. I've been to Bangalore multiple times, and if people aren't familiar, Bangalore is basically the the tech hub of India. It's their answer to, what we see in California. And to me, I envision if Cleveland having a stronger relationship with the government of Bangalore and the larger state that it's in, with the colleges there and with the technology companies that are there, as those companies want to expand into the US for the first time or additionally, I want them to know that Cleveland is the natural location for them. And they're not this urge to go to Silicon Valley or somewhere else in the United States. I want that to be completely dissipated by the fact that Cleveland has all of the infrastructure in place, both real and social, that it creates just a natural transition for those businesses into our community. And in turn, groups like the Cleveland Clinic and our national company or large international companies could do the same in reverse to all of our sister cities across the globe. I think that there's a real economic development benefit to the Sister Cities program that could be more deeply harnessed. And I'm eager to be a part of that because I think it could be incredibly impactful for our region.
Thank you very much for your answer there, Councilman Slife. Next, we'll check for Q&A in the chat. Right now, I actually, just as I was about to say, right now I don't see any. Here we got one. So, Councilman Slife, how are you working to create affordable housing in your ward as housing prices keep surging, but many immigrants don't have the resources to buy a home within their first 3 years here?
Sure. So within Ward 17 really runs the gamut when it comes to housing prices. There are communities within Ward 17 that are pretty high end, comparable to what we see in many suburbs. But then there's also a lot of affordable housing. And a big focus of mine has been to focus on how we can take affordable housing as it becomes available. Often it's in need of some degree of renovation, not anything that's falling apart, but just update electrical and make sure that lead paint is encapsulated and be able to get those homes into the hands of, not these predatory landlords that often don't even live in Cleveland or Ohio, but into the hands of people who are either going to own or are going to rent to, families that want to be in this community and really within some specific pockets of the neighborhood, we're seeing a high growth of immigrant communities moving in, both because of the social connections that they have, but also because of the institutions that are there, whether it's the rec center, whether it is a mosque that has a school, whether it's in an apartment building on a bus line. My goal is to be able to help these families get into these homes, but then also as they maybe grow and they're seeing the success that the United States can give to them, that they're also understanding how to maybe at some point pivot into another home in the neighborhood and allow this to kind of circulate. But just the last thing with affordable housing is that there's real opportunity, I think underappreciated opportunity for new housing development in Ward 17, particularly along our main corridors that have excellent transit access, especially with the new RTA schedules that can get someone from West Park all across the city and county relatively easily.
Thank you for your answer there, Councilman Slife. Do we have any more Q&A questions in the chat? I'll give our audience members about 15, 20, maybe 30 seconds to just go through and type those. I know it's not always the fastest process typing up Q&A questions. If not, I'll do one more question from our pre-supplied questions that we have here. Thank you. All right. So I'd like to jump a couple questions ahead in our pre-supplied questions and ask you what's our 10th question in our pre-supplied questions. Midwest cities leading the way in citywide growth and development through the inclusion of immigrant communities such as Detroit and Pittsburgh have implemented and created task forces or commissions to analyze the effects of immigration on their city, examine the challenges facing immigrants and immigrant communities, and promote immigrant success and build strong relationships between native-born and immigrant communities. Would you support the creation of such a task force or commission in Cleveland made up of city representatives, immigrant community leaders, business leaders, and members of Cleveland's nonprofit community? And how would you see something like this come to fruition?
Sure. So the short answer, the elevator answer is yes. I think it's a great idea. And, Cleveland as a city Sometimes we fail to appreciate how easy it is to identify a best practice in another city and to implement it as our own. So as we see what's happening in Detroit, in Pittsburgh, in not just Midwestern cities, but cities across the United States, it really is incumbent on us to learn from them and act similarly and evolve to make it our own. Not only because it's valuable, but really self-preservation. We are in competition with people, not just immigrants. We're in competition to keep people who are from this region in this region. But I think Global Cleveland, is incredibly well positioned, given the work that it does to convene all of these players. And I do believe that city representatives should be involved, as well as leaders of the immigrant community, because when we talk about diversity, one of the real value points of diversity is diversity of thought. And if we're not able to get all different types of players into the room that can look at the problem from every different angle, then it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to devise a solution that's actually meeting people where they are and is going to be effective. So rather than looking at this issue from these different silos as the city, as communities, as nonprofits, as Global Cleveland, that convening and developing those relationships really is the only way to get it done. And I see Global Cleveland leading the charge on that, and I thank them for it. I thank you. And I hope that that I'm supportive of all of those efforts as well.
Thank you very much, Councilman Slife, and thank you for your support and for your encouragement there. So with that, I would like to make one last call for Q&A questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, I don't think, how do you plan to continue? I think that might have been, language access. There we go.
So language access wise, just first and foremost, the availability of just every degree of information in Spanish should exist already. It's the largest language, like non-English language in our city. There are U.S. citizens who live their lives solely in the Spanish language. Like the fact that we don't have this service yet is into the realm of appalling. But then as it comes to language access for a dish, whether it's French or Nepali or any number of languages, it's really important to me that citizens have an ability, I should clarify, not citizens, residents, many won't be citizens, but that residents of the city of Cleveland have an ability to access their government, engage with their government, benefit from governmental transparency, and city council needs to expand and build upon its existing language access programs to make sure that we're able to be transparent. This segues very easily off of my support for public comment at city council meetings. City council needs to listen to the residents and allow residents an opportunity to engage their government. And while not everybody who lives in the city of Cleveland is able to vote in the United States, they are residents nonetheless, and they deserve the same opportunity. And again, this is not something that's new to Cleveland. If you go back 50, 100 years, the percentage of the population in our city that did not speak English at home was sizable. So we did it before, we can do it again. And, if you look back on the era, when did Cleveland grow the fastest? When was Cleveland this resurgent city? It was when probably the highest number of people didn't speak English as a first language. So the success that it brings to us is self-evident.
Thank you very much, Councilman Slife. And now that we are wrapping up questions, I'd like to thank everyone here tonight as we wrap things up. But I'd also like to say it wasn't too challenging keeping you under the time limit there, Councilman Slife. So thank you for that.
Nobody, was it brevity? Brevity is the key to wit. Is that the line?
I think that's, if not, it's a close
like
paraphrase.
That. Yeah, it's no one likes to hear a politician talk for more than 2 minutes, right?
All right. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone in attendance for attending the Award 17 Candidate Forum. We'd like to first of all thank Councilman Slife for being here tonight and coming in good faith to speak to the international community. As a reminder, we invited every candidate participating in this race to participate, and we are always willing to work with our community leaders and candidates at all times, and we hope to work with Councilman Slife and all of our candidates in every ward and in the mayoral race in the future. You can find the answer to the questions from those who are unable to attend this forum and unable to attend other forums on our website. And you'll also be able to find a recording of this forum on our website and on our YouTube channel sometime in the near future. We'd also like to thank the audience for coming here tonight. This is directed at you, and we really appreciate you coming here to learn and engage civically. And we'd also like to thank all of our interpreters. There weren't any for this meeting, but the interpreters who helped with our other forums this week. Without this, you broaden the access for everyone. And I'd also like to thank all of Global Cleveland staff for the amazing work they've done. And finally, I'd like to thank our partners, for which we could not have done any of these forums. Asia Inc., Asia Town Cleveland, the Badondo community of Greater Cleveland, the British American Chamber of Commerce of Ohio, Building Hope in the City, the City Club of Cleveland, the Cleveland Council on World Affairs, Council on International Programs USA, the Cleveland Cultural Gardens, the Collaborative Chambers Alliance, Connecting Cleveland, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Global Shapers Cleveland, the NAACP of Cleveland, Ohio Progressive Asian Women's Leadership, Refugee Response, Smart Development Inc., Us Together, USCRI Cleveland, and the Young Latino Network. All these organizations perform wonderful work with and for our international community, and I encourage everyone in attendance and everyone here to find them on social media and on the web to learn more about the work they do, and to, if they feel like it, contribute as well. Have a good evening, everyone, and remember, we strengthen our city by welcoming the world.